I summoned the last of my strength, sending a final farewell text to Serafina. Finally, Serafina, freshly liberated, wasn't as happy as I thought she'd be. In the moment of being dumped by her dream man, Michael, she finally realized how much she'd been spoiled by me. She frantically wanted to beg for forgiveness, willingly throwing away her proud ego. But this time I wouldn't be going back. It wasn't until my dying breath that I truly believed Serafina had never loved me. After our explosive argument, I stormed out of the apartment. I hadn't gone far before the accident happened. In the instant before consciousness faded, all that was left in my head was Serafina's voice, "Ethan, what exactly do you want from me to let me go?" As a man about to die, I suddenly felt that continuing to cling to her was pointless. I used the last of my strength to send her a breakup text. Our 7 years of obsession were finally coming to an end. However, perhaps heaven was punishing me for my sins, refusing to let me go even after death. I had to witness Serafina and Michael living so happily. Serafina, after regaining her freedom, had no idea about my accident, nor did she care where I went. The same day she received the breakup text, she threw away all traces of me from her place. While I was being rushed to the ER, she brought Michael home. I saw on Serafina's face a gentleness I had never seen before, as if my heart was being squeezed, throbbing continuously. In the midst of their intimacy, Michael casually asked, "Why did Ethan suddenly give up? Is something wrong?" I felt a tightening in my heart, but Serafina just lowered her voice and said, "What could be wrong with him? He and I were never on the same level. He should have realized this sooner, and stopped bothering me. At least breaking up will allow him to keep some dignity." Suddenly, I felt like all my years of perseverance were a joke. So I let go. I wouldn't cling to her anymore. Sure, trash only loves discarded goods, at least that's what I thought before Michael moved in. However, the reality seemed a little different from what I imagined. Ultimately, Serafina, after escaping me and being with Michael, didn't seem as joyful as I had envisioned. The first day Michael moved in, they had a huge fight. The atmosphere was so tense that even I, a ghost, felt suffocated. The reason for their fight was just the new decor after I left. It was then that I realized how spoiled Serafina had been by me. Throughout our 7 years together, whatever she wanted to do, I silently supported her, even when it made me unhappy. So, Serafina often ridiculed me as someone without opinions, who was a normal guy. Now, she was finally with Michael, but she forgot that Michael, like her, was a genius admired by many. How could he spoil her the way I did? Neither of them was willing to back down, so Michael received a call from his studio, turned cold, and slammed the door, leaving. Serafina sat silently in the living room, stunned for a long time. In the end, Serafina still decided to compromise. I had watched Serafina for 7 years and never seen her enter the kitchen. Now, she was flustered as she prepared dinner to please Michael. I felt a pang in my heart. Suddenly, Serafina gasped, quickly grabbing her hand that had been cut by the knife. In a panic, she rushed out. A bleeding wound was clearly visible on her hand. If it had been before, I would have panicked and taken her to the hospital, or I definitely wouldn't have let this happen. Serafina's hands were for drawing. She was a genius. Her hands couldn't be injured. Obviously, Serafina was also frightened by the accident. She unconsciously called my name, then froze in place. The whole living room fell silent. No one rushed to her side anymore. Serafina mocked herself a little, gave a distorted smile, and coldly went to get medicine. She ultimately didn't finish dinner that day. Serafina ordered takeout, waiting until nearly midnight for Michael to return. The food had long since gone cold. Serafina lowered her head, her long hair covering her eyes, concealing all the emotions in her eyes. However, 7 years by Serafina's side made me understand that a fire of anger was silently burning. Michael naturally didn't notice. He was surprised to see Serafina. "Why are you still here?" I felt a little tense. If it were me, talking to Serafina like that, she would definitely slam the door and leave, and wouldn't return for days. But Michael was different. He was Serafina's dream man. He had enough confidence and arrogance. Serafina pursed her lips tightly, the veins on her hand clearly visible, but her voice was still gentle. I was waiting for you to eat, why didn't you answer the phone? Michael frowned, not wanting to dwell on this matter further. There's an exhibition in Mountain City next week, I have to go. We just got together, can't you put your work aside? Michael stopped, silently looking at Serafina. All the reconciliation that Serafina had carefully prepared amounted to nothing. The two of them continued to argue, even more fiercely than this morning. In the end, neither was willing to yield. Michael suddenly grabbed Serafina's collar. Serafina, you really have been spoiled. Do you really think everyone will pamper you like Ethan did? I also have my career. Love is just a spice in life. If you really can't take it, let's break up. You can go find Ethan now, maybe it's not too late. Serafina was completely stunned, her eyes rarely showing a hint of confusion. It took her a long time to lower her head, relax her shoulders, and gently hug Michael. Don't mention him anymore, okay? I barely escaped him. Maybe we've been apart for too long. Serafina looked at me, trying to say, give me some time, I'll fix everything. Michael was silent, but he ultimately didn't push her away. In their eyes, I was just an opportunistic thief. Even though they were together now, they were still worried that one day I would go crazy again and ruin their relationship. I felt a little tired, they were really overthinking. I wouldn't go back anymore, I was dead anyway. However, Serafina's concession didn't help them maintain their relationship for long. The two continuously argued, from trivial matters to creative work. Almost everything in the house was smashed. Michael had his own pride, so he didn't care whether Serafina was hurt or not. They kept arguing, then leaving Serafina alone to grieve. I saw her, the person I couldn't say a harsh word to, sitting and drinking on the sofa. I felt so uncomfortable. The real emotion erupted on Serafina's birthday. I didn't expect that Michael would forget her birthday. Ever since the two of them fought the other day, Michael went to attend a seminar in a neighboring state. By the time Serafina found out, he was already gone. This was the first time in 7 years that Serafina's birthday didn't have me involved. I thought this would be her happiest birthday, with her loved one by her side, with no one to disturb her life anymore. But unexpectedly, it turned out to be her loneliest birthday. Every year, I would prepare a surprise for her a month in advance. Although Serafina never appreciated it, she always dragged on, not coming home until very late. This year, Serafina sat alone by the large window, drinking, the faint moonlight shining on her face, unable to clearly see the emotions in her eyes. Around 10 o'clock, Serafina started to appear anxious, continuously scrolling through her phone, as if waiting for a message. At first, I didn't understand who she was waiting for. Until her eyes lingered on the chat between me and her, I suddenly realized. I felt so strange, and I gave myself a bitter smile. Serafina, you're not waiting for my birthday wishes, are you? But I wouldn't bother her anymore. When no one talked to her, Serafina just sat hunched over, silently looking at the screen, waiting for someone who would never text her again. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Both she and I were stunned. If I wasn't standing next to her, I would have thought I was pathetic, making myself embarrassed. Serafina couldn't help but laugh, a hint of self-satisfaction appearing in her eyes. She let the doorbell ring for a long time before leisurely getting up to open the door. I knew it, who else could it be but you? Serafina paused, her fingers on the doorknob curling slightly, a little embarrassment appearing on her face. Michael raised his eyebrows, who else would it be but me? Forgot to bring the key, why did it take so long to open the door? Serafina still stood still at the door, waiting for a long time. Serafina slowly closed the door, looking at Michael lying on the sofa, resting with his eyes closed, a hint of contempt flashing in her eyes. Michael, today is my birthday. Michael was a little surprised, flipped through his phone for a long time, and then hesitated to reply. Sorry, I've been busy negotiating a collaboration with Lee lately, a little dazed. I'll take you out to eat tomorrow. Serafina seemed a little tired, we're lovers, not partners. Can you not bring work into this to deal with me? Michael couldn't stand such a reproach, deal with you? I didn't intentionally forget. We're both adults, can you not be so unreasonable? Serafina couldn't hold back, if you forgot, why did Ethan remember? Don't you love me as much as he did? The atmosphere immediately fell silent. Serafina also realized she had said the wrong thing. She lowered her head, muttered, and angrily punched the wall. Michael looked at her coldly. Serafina, you should know better than anyone that Ethan is the one who loved you the most in the world. You didn't cherish him, so why do you still want to enjoy the things he gave you? Serafina looked into his eyes, her eyes filled with sadness. I thought we would go back to how we were before, but now you make people feel suffocated. Let's break up. The door locked, the large room was once again left with only Serafina. I looked at her sitting curled up on the sofa, feeling very uncomfortable. Serafina, is this the love you wanted to pursue? No one answered my question. Serafina was still sitting blankly, looking at her phone. Until the clock struck 12, until her phone ran out of battery. Her eyes gradually moved away from the chat with the person who would never reply to her, as if muttering to herself, Ethan, do you really not care about me anymore? My heart tightened. Yes, Serafina, I don't care about you anymore. You are free. A few weeks after being with Michael, Serafina broke up with him. After seeing Michael off, Serafina darkened, sent a message to me asking where I was. If it were normal, when I received an active message from Serafina, I would definitely be very happy. No matter what I was doing, I would reply immediately. But Serafina seemed certain that I would, like every time, quickly reply as soon as I opened the message, but she didn't know that from now on she wouldn't receive a message from me. When she woke up groggily, she should have reached for her phone out of habit, but when she looked at the chat interface, she only saw the news about Ethan moving away. There was no more news from me. Serafina couldn't believe it, she kept refreshing the page, and finally believed that I really wouldn't reply to her. After all, I was just a dim soul now. How could I have the strength to reply to her? She called several times, but no one answered. Serafina could clearly see that she had become more anxious. Accompanied by the sound of the mechanical female voice coming from the phone, she suddenly smashed the phone, but quickly she regained her senses. With a panicked expression picked up the phone screen was broken. No matter how hard she tried, there was no response. With Serafina's current status, the phone was just the cheapest thing on her body. If it was broken, it could be thrown away. However, she still hurried to the repair shop. The repairman looked up at her a few times. Miss, you're not short of money, this phone is probably old too, it's better to change to a new one. Serafina pursed her lips slightly, without saying anything. The repairman hesitated a little, unable to resist teasing her, must be something important in it, right? Serafina turned her face away slightly, it took a long time to hum, as a reply. When she received the phone back, Serafina breathed a sigh of relief, opened the chat interface, confirmed that the data was still there, and her tense expression relaxed. She sat down on the sidewalk, had called me a few times, and finally she was unwilling to confirm. I really wouldn't answer her phone anymore. However, she seemed to remember something, quickly opened the address book. Young master, please let Ethan get on the phone, I need to find him. My brother hummed softly. Serafina, if I remember correctly, you guys broke up a long time ago, right? Serafina in her voice a little hurried and begging, I never agreed. Ethan wants to break up, he has to tell me directly. My brother was silent for a long time, his voice couldn't help but tremble. He won't look for you anymore. After I died, I found out, perhaps Serafina still cared about me a little. When I was alive, my brother didn't like Serafina. Every time the two met, they would keep ridiculing each other. Now that I was dead, my brother didn't have to care about my feelings anymore. Serafina came to find her, asked about me. My brother immediately told the bodyguards to chase her away. It was the first time I saw Serafina in such a miserable situation. It rained heavily that day. Serafina just stood firm in the rain, waiting all afternoon. She occasionally looked towards the company door, as if in the next moment, that fool would run in front of her again, his face full of worry asking her, don't you know how to take care of yourself? And then foolishly forget everything, and take her home. Unfortunately, this time, no matter how long she waited, she couldn't wait for the person who would shield her from the rain. Every time someone came out of the company, Serafina would look up expectantly, until the last light was turned off, the light in her eyes gradually faded. My brother stood high and looked at her, his eyes full of contempt. Serafina, who are you putting on an act for? Serafina's steps were a little unsteady, while my brother kept mocking. Her face became more pale, but from beginning to end, she didn't say a word of rebuttal, just clenched her hands tightly. Waiting for my brother to finish cursing, she spoke. Her voice, betraying a humility and pleading she herself didn't recognize, was barely a whisper. "Young master, could you please let me see Ethan just once? This is between us, and Ethan certainly wouldn't want." Her voice trailed off, embarrassed at her own words. "For you to interfere so much." My brother's eyes burned red, a shimmer of tears reflecting the downpour. His response to Serafina was a punch, delivered without a shred of mercy. Serafina wasn't prepared. The blow sent her sprawling, crashing heavily to the ground. She tasted blood, lightly licking her bleeding lip, and gave a self-deprecating laugh. "Young master, if you want to hit me, hit me. Just, after you've vented your anger, can Ethan come back?" My brother completely ignored Serafina's words. What she said had no impact. The relentless punches and the rushing of his fists continued to batter her. It wasn't until those nearby realized my brother genuinely intended to beat her to death that they rushed to pull them apart. My brother, uncaring of his bloodied hands, violently wiped them clean. But tears couldn't be contained, escaping in a choked sob, trembling with emotion. Serafina seemed to suddenly grasp something. She stumbled to her feet, dragging herself to my brother. Grabbing hold of his pant leg, my brother instantly seized her hair. "Serafina." "No one's stopping him. It's because I don't want you anymore. I hate you. I will never come back." The last embers of light in Serafina's eyes were extinguished. She collapsed in the rain, falling into a puddle on the ground like a stray dog without a home. An umbrella suddenly appeared above her head. Serafina froze, stunned. With every ounce of strength she possessed, she scrambled to her feet. "Ethan, I was wrong." But it was only a passerby. Seeing Serafina's disheveled and terrifying appearance, the person recoiled in horror, stumbling back several steps. Serafina stared blankly. It was then she realized that no one would ever hold an umbrella over her head again. After Serafina was admitted to the hospital, her mental state was fragile. During that time, Michael visited her a few times. But he couldn't bear to witness the once proud and elegant woman reduced to such a state. He couldn't help himself from slapping Serafina twice. Serafina, as if she felt no pain, stared vacantly at Michael. "Ethan? Ethan really doesn't want me anymore? What am I going to do?" Michael, enraged, grabbed her collar. "You regret it now? Then find a way to fix it. Lying here like a dead dog, what can you possibly change?" "Serafina, I really misjudged you." Whether it was one of Michael's statements that provoked Serafina, she did, indeed, slowly recover. That night, she secretly injected herself with a sedative and went directly home. I watched her cautiously knock on the door of my room. Wait a moment. The next day, Serafina spent almost every waking moment locked in her art studio, painting day and night. When hungry, she would eat a quick bite of junk food. When truly exhausted, she would sleep in my room for a short while. Before long, her body was depleted, and she developed a high fever. Serafina seemed delirious with the fever. Refusing to take medicine, she curled up in my bed, endlessly scrolling through the messages between us. "Ethan, I'm so miserable. Can't you come back and see me? I miss you so much." I heard, and my throat constricted with emotion. "Serafina, I'm right here beside you. It's just. You can't be so cruel. Why did you have to wait until I was dead to start cherishing me? Now, I can't go back." And so. After several days, Serafina carefully carried her artwork into the living room. When I saw the content of the painting, I felt only sarcasm, heartache, and helplessness, as if my soul was being torn apart. This was the first time Serafina had painted for me. When I was alive, she would never consider painting for me, and whenever I asked, her requests always ended with her ridicule. She was a genius. How could she paint something so lacking in artistic merit? I had asked her, if that were the case, why did she secretly paint so many scenes that reminded her of Michael? At that time, Serafina's eyes were filled with disdain. Michael was art. Painting things like me would only make people feel bored. Ethan, why do you have to embarrass yourself? Now, she was finally painting the things I had always wanted, but I was dead and no longer cared. Serafina, with utmost reverence, slowly caressed the painting, her eyes softening. Ethan. Wait for me to bring you back. After finishing the painting, Serafina seemed a little more relaxed. She leaned back on the sofa, closing her eyes to rest. The room was silent, broken only by the sound of the TV announcer's voice. Only a short time later, I felt my body stiffen. The TV was broadcasting a news report about the circumstances of my injuries in the accident that day. Serafina, with her eyes closed, listened. But very quickly, her body began to tremble uncontrollably. Her eyes fell on a small, unremarkable corner of the scene, as if trying to confirm whether she was mistaken. She almost pressed her face against the screen. Whether she wanted to admit it or not, the truth couldn't be altered. A broken necklace, severed in two, lay silently on the ground. It was the matching necklace that I had insisted on buying. Although on the first day I bought it, Serafina had thrown hers into a corner, I still couldn't bear to take mine off. Serafina sat paralyzed on the floor, her face a mask of despair. Impossible. She abruptly stood up. Because of a shift in time zones and lack of sleep, her body staggered and fell straight to the ground. Blood began to flow out. But she seemed not to notice anything, struggled to her feet, carefully wrapped the painting, and hurried back towards the Ethan's residence. I had imagined many scenarios about her learning of my death. Perhaps after she and Michael were together for a long time, she would accidentally find out that the person who had once clung to her so desperately was dead. Maybe she would think that the wicked were being punished and that everything was my fault. Then, she could breathe a sigh of relief and live happily with Michael. Or, perhaps, she would still remember our shared past. Even a trace of emotion might move me. But no matter what, in my mind, she certainly wouldn't shed a single tear for my death. But now, she was kneeling before the gate to the Ethans, begging my family to let her see me one last time. At this moment, Serafina was no longer the arrogant genius I remembered. She knelt in the rain, using every ounce of her remaining strength to protect the painting. It was just that the rain was too heavy. No matter how hard she tried, she could only watch the painting slowly get wet. I wanted her to leave. I had let her go. She should live the life she wanted. But she couldn't hear me, and still stubbornly waited for the person who would never return. After a long time, the gates of the Ethan's residence finally slowly opened. Serafina's eyes lit up slightly, but when she saw who stepped out, the light in her eyes gradually died down. I stood high above, silently watching her kneeling in the rain. She wasn't angry, but her eyes were filled with indelible sadness. Serafina intently looked at me, trying to find a trace of recognition in my eyes. But clearly, she had failed. Mr. Ethan, can you let Ethan come out to see me one time? I just need to see him from afar. I'm really worried about him. I laughed, my eyes filled with irony. Serafina, how did you treat him when he loved you so much? For 7 long years, he devoted his youth to you, only to receive your scorn. Now that he's gone, you're putting on an act of being so deeply touched. Serafina's eyes contracted. It took her a long time to find her voice. Gone, what do you mean, gone? I looked at her with an expression of pity, and then completely condemned her. Serafina, he died in an accident, on the very day you welcomed Michael back. He is dead. Serafina seemed to suddenly love me. After learning of my death, she dazedly returned home, curling up in my room and sleeping for a long time. When she woke up, she kept calling the number that could no longer be answered. She told me she knew she was wrong, begging me not to abandon her. But we both knew that I would never be the same again, relentlessly repeating every day. She began to use alcohol to numb herself, drinking to the point of stomach bleeding, passing out at home. If not for Michael accidentally finding her, perhaps she would have followed me. However, after waking up, her situation showed no signs of improvement. This time, no matter how much Michael hit her or scolded her, Serafina didn't have any response. Michael bent down and yelled at her, "What is it about you? You were once the most talented person among us, how can you destroy yourself like this? Serafina's eyes flickered, a mocking laugh escaping her throat. Ethan always said I was a genius, but he was wrong, I'm the most foolish person. It's been 7 years, and I still can't understand my own heart. I'm really too foolish, that's why he doesn't want me anymore. No one could touch her anymore. Serafina, upon waking up, continually reviewed the messages between me and her, repeatedly listening to the voice messages I sent her. She tried to find pictures of me, but she had hated me so much that she could never let those things remain on her phone. Until she suddenly thought of something, drew a syringe, and ran towards the door. Michael blocked her path, striking her hard across the face. Serafina, are you crazy? Serafina grabbed his shoulders tightly, her grip so strong that Michael couldn't help but cry out in pain. He had intended to hit Serafina again, but when he looked into her tear-filled, helpless eyes, he reluctantly lowered his hand. Serafina's voice was filled with anxiety, even choking and coughing uncontrollably. Michael, have you ever seen the graduation photo I put in the living room? Michael avoided her gaze. It took a moment before he spoke. Those things, the day you brought them home, you threw them all away. A stiff smile appeared on Serafina's face, then completely disappeared. She released Michael, silently stepped out. Where is she going? Serafina smirked, I'm going to find them again. If Ethan comes back, and sees that everything is gone, he'll be very sad. Michael's face suddenly became extremely ugly. He turned pale, with a panicked expression, he looked towards Serafina running away. Crazy woman, you really are crazy. Not only Michael, but I also felt that Serafina had gone insane. She clearly knew that I wouldn't come back again. I followed Serafina, it was the third place we had passed through, it was a landfill. But it had been so long, how could she find those things again? But Serafina still didn't give up, trying to drag her body that was running a high fever and walked on step by step. Suddenly, she slipped, her entire body rushing forward, and slid down the slope, hitting her head on a sharp rock. My eyes suddenly contracted, instinctively shouting her name. Immediately afterwards, I saw Serafina open her eyes in disbelief, her eyes gradually stopping at the place where my soul existed. The expression on her face immediately became lively, she couldn't help but laugh out loud, but tears fell heavily on the ground. She remembered me, but the wound was too severe, she could only tiredly raise her head to look at me. Ethan, are you here to pick me up? My mood was very complicated, until now, I truly believed that Serafina had some feelings for me. It was just that those feelings came too late. For 7 years, all my love had been ground away, leaving only those things. Perhaps I didn't even believe that she really loved me at all. However, those obsessions had long disappeared from the moment I died. I silently looked at her, Serafina, I've let you go, live your own life, I don't love you anymore. Until I said this sentence, the heavy feeling from the moment I became a soul gradually disappeared. I saw Serafina's eyes become extremely panicked, she desperately crawled towards me. Looking down, it turned out that my soul was gradually disappearing. Ethan, Michael, don't leave me, please, don't leave me. I smiled serenely, squatted down and finally touched her eyes. Goodbye, Serafina. My life was so short, looking back quickly, most of the memories were taken over by Serafina. From the time I was very young, I had liked her. From the day I met her, she had always been the genius in everyone's eyes. She was like the light that made people unable to not approach, even if they were burned many times, they still did not regret themselves, just to get closer to her. To do this, I learned the art that I had never been good at. When I was struggling and patient, finally able to stand in front of her, she glanced at my painting, and frowned. Is this school a place that anyone can enter now? She glanced at me from head to toe, and said in a somewhat surprised tone, Schoolmate, your family must be quite wealthy, if you have this intention, it's better to do something else. You're just not cut out for this. Hearing the underlying meaning in her words, my face flushed instantly, and my words stuttered. Serafina, I didn't mean. But she didn't want to dwell on it, offering a dismissive glance and then leaving. From that day on, I knew that Serafina was a genius, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't keep up with her. I buried my feelings deep inside, only daring to secretly admire her from afar. But then she gave me a chance. At the time, everyone in the department knew that Serafina had a crush on Michael. Before I came along, Serafina had confessed to Michael many times, but for some reason, Michael, although he seemed to like her too, never accepted her affections. Serafina was an arrogant woman, how could she tolerate this rejection? After her last rejected confession, Serafina stopped seeking Michael out. I thought, finally, I had a chance, and I was determined to get closer to her. Before long, the entire school knew that Serafina had a follower. People teased her, "Your little puppy is here again, aren't you going to go see him?" She was surrounded by countless people when she walked up to me, raised an eyebrow, looked me up and down, and said, "I hear you like me?" My face flushed instantly. I couldn't hear the voices around me anymore, just nodding blankly. Serafina laughed. At that time I didn't understand the meaning of that laughter. Looking back now, she must have been mocking my naivety. I was dazed as I became Serafina's boyfriend. No one expected that Serafina would end up with me. But I knew very well that Serafina didn't really love me. She was just using me as an excuse to provoke Michael, wanting to force Michael to concede. Even so, I still cherished this opportunity. Because of studying art, I had many conflicts with my family. Throughout my studies, my family almost cut off all financial support. So, not long after starting to date Serafina, she realized that I wasn't the wealthy son she had imagined. She looked at the canvases that I had scrimped and saved to buy, and couldn't help but sneer, "I didn't know you could be so flashy. I don't need these things. It's better to spend this time thinking about how to salvage your mediocre talent. I don't know why you even bother coming here." I stood there, frozen, feeling like I wanted to cry. And so, this strange relationship continued for 3 years. Until graduation, Serafina still hadn't received any attention from Michael. She changed direction, and her attitude towards me changed a year later. At that time, I had reconciled with my family and had enough funds to support her in pursuing her dreams. I thought everything was going in a good direction, but to my surprise, what I received was even more contempt from Serafina. That night, I went to pick up Serafina, who was dead drunk. I happened to overhear her being teased by her friends. "It's true that Michael and Ethan aren't on the same level. Are you still hoping he'll be as sweet as Ethan? Honestly, even if Michael is an idiot, he has money now. Being taken care of, you must be happy, right?" Serafina was furious, her face cold as she looked down and swung the wine bottle, smashing it over the other person's head. I couldn't help but scream, then looked up, only to see Serafina looking at me coldly. That night, we had a terrible fight. "Ethan, don't you think finding someone like that will impress me? Be taken care of? I don't need you to get involved, I can live 1,000 times better than now." My heart ached. It turned out that in Serafina's eyes, my love was just a shackle that bound her, a stain on her perfect life. But at that time I stubbornly didn't want to let go. I preferred to continue suffering in this unequal relationship, hurting myself again and again, until the love had dried up. I bowed my head in acceptance, no longer interfering in her life. Although I was her official boyfriend, I didn't dare to ask her where she was going anymore. Looking back now, I really was a joke. I didn't expect to still be alive. Although my body was in excruciating pain, I was still sure I was alive, still breathing. My brother came in, his face weary. When my eyes met hers, my whole body shook, letting the water pitcher fall heavily on me. He said many things, told me so much that I almost didn't wake up, about my parents, about how they had aged almost 10 years in one night, and about what Serafina had done in the past. I naturally knew what Serafina had done. It's just that perhaps because I had died once, when the name Serafina was mentioned, my heart only trembled slightly, and then quickly returned to calm. I now remembered that when I left, Serafina was still seriously injured, lying unconscious in the suburbs. I thought for a long time, and finally couldn't help but ask, "How is she? Is she okay?" My brother's eyes were filled with anger. "Don't be blinded by her again. Only when you lose it do you know how to cherish it. When you go back, she'll still be the same." I tried to smile slightly. "No, we broke up. I lowered my head. My brother clearly didn't expect me to say that. He gently patted my hand, his voice lowered. That's good then. All these years, I've been exhausted. After a moment, my brother spoke again. Recently, Serafina has been acting up, it doesn't seem very good. He didn't finish his sentence before hurried footsteps sounded outside the door, and I could vaguely hear someone talking about cutting her wrists. My brother lowered his head, it took him a long time before he seemed to make a decision. If you want to go, you can go see her, I'll push you over there. I thought about the recent events, and finally nodded. There were some things that should be made clear. When I met Serafina, I finally understood what the not good my brother was talking about meant. She was being held down on the bed by several medical staff, the red marks on her wrists were a terrible sight. She seemed to realize that someone was looking at her through the window. Serafina's eyes shifted slightly, and when she saw me, her whole body instantly went silent. She softly called my name, her eyes glistening as if she was about to cry. When the people in the room gradually left, my brother pushed me in. Serafina's eyes were glued to me, afraid that in just another second, I would disappear like before. Ethan, is that really you? I didn't say anything, just smiled at her. Serafina looked at me. You've lost weight. You're finally free, you'll live the way you want to, right? Serafina kept shaking her head, tears soaking her pillow. I'm sorry, Ethan. I can't live without you. Please, come back to me. Didn't you always want me to paint for you? From now on, I'll only paint for you, okay? Before I could speak, my brother couldn't help but scold her. Serafina, do you really think you're so important? You always thought you were so high and mighty, that my brother was just a nobody, not worthy of you. But try asking yourself, if it weren't for my brother's silent support, with your talent, could you even earn enough to eat? Serafina, the things you think are so noble, in the eyes of the Ethans, they're nothing at all. I cut him off, that's enough, Serafina, we've wasted too much of each other's time. It's time to get back on the right track. She was silent for a moment, then gently said, You're right, I was never suited for studying art in the first place. I've been too arrogant all these years, it's time to let go. I didn't say anything, feeling like everything was over. Serafina took my hand tightly, after I recover, I might go abroad, we might not see each other for many years. I looked at her, and smiled slightly. I wish you all the best in the future, take good care of yourself, don't let yourself end up in the hospital again. Serafina kept shaking her head, she wanted to reach out and grab me, but no matter how hard she tried, she could only grasp at air. Finally, she missed and almost fell out of bed. I sighed, Serafina, didn't you say you would leave with dignity? She suddenly fell silent, her face gradually turning pale, and finally couldn't look up at me. I turned and left, my heart ready to close off everything. Time passed, and I gradually integrated into the company, starting to build my own projects. Life gradually got better. Today is my wedding day. My wife is someone my family matched me with. We've been together for a few years, and now we're used to each other's presence. Walking into the wedding hall can be considered inevitable. On my wedding day, I received a painting from overseas. The painting was titled Pilgrimage, the colors bright, as if containing all the intense emotions of the world. My wife curiously looked at it for a while. The painting is very beautiful, it must be a rare talent. My heart suddenly sank, the face that had long disappeared from my memory slowly appeared in my mind. My wife stared at me, seeming to realize something. What's wrong? Is something the matter? I startled, quickly smiled and told them to take the painting away. It's nothing, let's go. At that time I thought to myself, Serafina must be living well, maybe she had fulfilled her student dreams and become a famous artist. This painting might have been stored in some corner, along with other guest works. Then, after a while, when I was chatting with friends back home, someone suddenly mentioned Serafina. It's a pity, she used to be the most talented person in our class, the teachers also had high expectations for her. I didn't expect her to be in a car accident, leaving us too soon. I was a little stunned. What did you say? Don't you know? Serafina is gone. I couldn't hear the rest of what the person said. I quietly walked through the crowd, as if some force was guiding me, and then I saw that painting again. The painting was no longer as well cared for as before, the colors had faded a lot. My eyes stopped, inch by inch, on the painting, and then a small line of text in the corner caught my attention. It was Serafina's biography. In 2017, I got married.